The next matchup we have got is Denver at Miami. Tom, serious question. If Denver lose, could this be the end of the Russell Wilson era in Denver? Could we see Jarrett Stidham?
I think it's possibly a little early for that. I know Sean Payton doesn't accept anything other than winning. And all the moves Sean Payton made this offseason weren't about slowly rebuilding the Broncos. It was very much about what can I do to get us in a position where we might be able to sneak into the wild card. And if it all worked out, then perhaps that would have been fine. But the truth is that this offense, it needs time. It needs healthy players like Jerry Jeudy, who only just came back from his hamstring injury last week. It needs a healthy Javonte Williams who can carry a running game. And what we've seen at the minute is Javonte Williams looks okay, but he doesn't look fantastic. Samaje Perine doesn't look as good as he did with the Bengals last year, to the point where even Jaleel McLaughlin's getting like, one carry a week, but last year snuck in for a touchdown. And you can see on screen, Javonte's 34th out of 48 running backs in EPA. So it's really not quite materialized on that front. In terms of players who I would play this week, it was very frustrating for me after thinking that Marvin Mims' breakout would come in week one, to then see last week he absolutely tore it up and, had 8.1 yards per route run, which is just astounding. So maybe Sean Payton just, accepts that this is the version of Russ he's got to live with. And if he wants to win, then he's got to let Russ take some of those deep downfield shots and get on with it. So, yeah, I don't think this Broncos team are going to be able to keep up with the Dolphins, who pass at a high rate. They pass at a 60% rate compared to 40% run. Tua leads the league in yards with 715 and 9.5 yards per attempt. And the Broncos, for all they've got Patrick Surtain, who we've talked about being incredible, they're allowing the second highest wide receiver catch rate at 81%. So you can get them that way. The Broncos allow the third most running back receiving yards at 114. So is this a week where Raheem Mostert has another good week? We saw last week, he looked fantastic ripping off that 40-yard run, finishes the RB5, and he's only 6K. I think most people will want to play Tyreek and Tua. But if you add Raheem Mostert in there as well, that's a good way to get different if you're playing on DraftKings. Jalen Waddle, it feels like at some point we'll see the kind of explosion game for him. But it's also kind of noteworthy that Tyreek Hill's had 5 red zone targets and Jalen Waddle's had 0 so far. So I think perhaps the ADP just pushed Jalen Waddle a little too high this offseason, simply because he doesn't have quite enough to just take on Tyreek and how dominant Tyreek is.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there is that you brushed over is Raheem Mostert. I think he's been phenomenal, and I'm really interested in him as a super cheap dynasty buy. If you're struggling with injuries, you've got Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, you've lost Nick Chubb or J.K. Dobbins. Like, there's plenty of running back injuries away, and Raheem Mostert's just sat over there, probably worth less than a second. Can you send a second round pick for Raheem Mostert and a third or something like that? Like, he is screaming out as a buy in Dynasty right now, and he's got no competition. Devon Achane's, not quite seeing the field, not seeing the workload that we hoped he would. Salvon Ahmed certainly not getting it done. Jeff Wilson doesn't sound like he's 100% coming back from week 5 on. I think Raheem Mostert, if you want someone cheap, if you want someone you can just plug in and get moving, I'm really excited about that. We've got a couple of questions in the chat, Tom. First of all, T. Higgins or Keenan Allen rest of the season? This is Keenan Allen for me by a landslide.
Keenan Allen easy for me. I think even if Joe Burrow is healthy, I think Jamar Chase will get back to himself at some point. We saw last season how much Jamar Chase just became a target, how get points. I think last week was a case of really trying to get T. Higgins going, and it worked for them. And then you just concentrate on what worked because it wasn't working with Jamar Chase. But yeah, definitely Keenan Allen all the way.
And then next question from Caden. I'm thinking of buying low on Josh Jacobs. Would a trade for Jalen Reed be good? If not, maybe thinking of pairing up Khalil Herbert and Marvin Mims, like the potential. I talked about Josh Jacobs as a buy low in my members only trade article that we released on Tuesday now. I love Josh Jacobs as a buy low. I think he's been rusty. I think that he's got a great schedule coming up. I think we're going to see the Raiders lean on him more. Would I make both of those trades? Absolutely. If you're a contender and you need that running back, I think those both good moves for him. Do you agree, Tom, or are you nervous about Josh Jacobs right now?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs has looked bad, but this is a guy who didn't practice through the summer. And for all these running back holdouts over the summer, none of them are working out particularly well. Also, I think it was Ted Nugent of The Athletic put it out this week that the Raiders are getting more close to the line of scrimmage defensive looks because defenses just don't respect Jimmy's ability to throw it deep, so they're happy to be closer to the line of scrimmage. So I do think that it might take a little while for Josh Jacobs to get going. But absolutely, I think he's very much a value, and I would definitely do Jalen Reed for Josh Jacobs because at some point Christian Watson is going to be back, and at some point Romeo Doubs is going to get up to full health, and I think that that's a point where Josh Jacobs could be a better player for the rest of the season.